Ladies and gentlemen, here we are again, with the fifth and final episode of the series, The Decades. Today we're talking about the 2010s. Darius Alavi, aka Persolaise, thanks so much for joining us and gracing us with your appearance and very knowledgeable, encyclopedic kind of self. How you feeling today? And thanks for being here with us again.
It's very, very kind, Max. I'm not sure how knowledgeable and encyclopedic I'm feeling today, but it's very kind of you to say so. No, it's been so much fun, and I can't believe that we're already on number 5.
I know. Did you find this was more like even harder, particularly in comparison to the other, decades?
Okay, well, I have a confession to make because I had a little bit of a head start because a while ago, when we came to the end of the decade that we're talking about, I actually did a best of the decade post, you did as well, on Persolaise.com. Now, having said that, I think I ended up choosing something in the region of 40 perfumes for that blog post. So even bringing the 40 down to 5 was hard. And even just a few hours ago before we started recording, I was still debating over one, and then I just kind of thought, okay, just go with it. And as we've said before, on any other day the choices may be different. So yes, it was hard back when I did the original list, but as I say, I had a little bit of a head start.
I did the same. I did actually the best of the decades, niche and designer. I did 2 videos covering the niche and designer. I think both were top 15 because I couldn't just narrow it down to 10. So you got to imagine narrowing it down to 5 here was a bit painful. I mean, I had the lists to go by, but like you said, at any given day, this may change. But before we get into the choices, of course, you're going to go first because you're my guest here, so you always have first dibs. Let's talk a little bit about the 2010s. I mean, this revolutionary decade that anticipated the decade that we're in right now. Started in January of 2010 and ended in December 31st of 2019, which was this global financial crisis that began in 2008. So when we started the 2010s, we came into this last decade within a financial crisis worldwide, especially when it came to the real estate. Was it very tough for you guys in the UK? I mean, it was rough here.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the thing about that particular crisis, wasn't it? That it was global. I mean, at the time I was working in the state education sector, which I am now as well. I mean, there was a whole sort of other day job that's got nothing to do with perfume, and the budget cuts and the reductions in services that took place as a result of that. I mean, it was very, very real, and a lot of people really suffered. And I think the repercussions of all of that are still around.
I agree with that. And I remember vividly, the recession was such that the unemployment rate was huge, and it took a good 5-6 years to rebound from that. Obviously, we're in a little bit of a recession now because of the pandemic too, but I think that one in particular was really, really hard to recover. But let's talk about good things. So through that recession, I think a new profession came about, which was the streaming culture, right? Social media explosion, the stuff that we're doing right now here on YouTube, Instagram. It was globally and, virtually accepted to go viral. And then the going green, movements, the rise of smartphones, more and more, all the new, the greatest and latest, phones to be connected 24/7, and that's what we have right now. It's still going on, but I think the rise of smartphones, the rise of social media engagement, all happened in that last decade. Would you agree?
Completely. I mean, I started my blog. I started Persolaise.com in 2010. I think you started your YouTube channel around about that time.
2011. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. And absolutely, that was the time when when perfume blogs were rising in prominence. I mean, you were ahead of the curve by doing a YouTube channel at the time, because I think they were still few and far between. No, absolutely. Just the fact that I can now, sit in my spare bedroom at home and connect up with a smartphone, made by a brand named after a popular fruit, just with my home Wi-Fi connection is actually extraordinary. And I think we're almost on the verge now of taking it for granted. But when you just kind of step back and think about it, it's amazing that we can do this, and it's amazing that we're connected through the World Wide Web in this way.
revolutionary times for sure. To think that when you ask somebody, not us particular, because you have a day job, I have a day job, but there's a lot of people that do this for a living. You ask them, what are you? I'm a YouTuber. And some of these guys are making millions, a year. So it's insane to think that this would become a profession one day. But then we also had the hip hop, R&B musical, rise, political Twitter fights, back and forth that became really predominant in that decade. Any other cultural phenomenons you can think about within that last decade?
It's funny, isn't it, when something is so close, but I suppose more barriers were broken down, even, maybe in terms of social revolution, you could compare it in some ways to the 60s and the 70s, because there was this real push for greater acceptance of the LGBTQ community, of maybe people with disabilities, or all of those sorts of barriers kept breaking down even more. I mean, when was the word woke first used? I mean, I have to say it's not one of my favorite words, but I kind of go along with the concept behind it. All of that was in the previous decade, and of course, the increasing rise of environmental concerns, global warming, etc., the climate crisis, all of that, I think we can trace back to the previous decade as well.
I agree. So let's talk about the fragrances here that we have at hand. So before we get into the choices, we'll go with your fifth choice first. But before you pull that choice, are there any genres or ingredients that you find were mostly used or very predominant or prominent or really talked about within that decade? I mean, I myself saw the rise of gourmands, tons of use of tonka beans and vanilla. Like vanilla and tonka, I think, were really predominant in that decade. Would you say so?
Yes. I mean, I knew you would ask me this question, and as I said, I think it is quite hard to pick out trends for something that was fairly recent. But absolutely, the so-called fruituli, as in, the fruity patchouli, was huge, wasn't it? The big patchouli bomb. Oud, of course. I mean, that was the decade when every single brand pretty much did an oud, and now we have very, 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 very few brands. Hardly any brands actually that don't have an oud. And the other thing as well that I think was noteworthy for me, in fragrance composition during that decade, was that it really felt like, well, we could say two things, one more important than the other, I suppose, was that there was the real absence of a truly abstract perfume style. Perfumes had to be super understandable, super legible, super transparent from the word go, so that if you smelled a perfume from a mainstream brand, it was almost as though they were being made easier for consumers to access, but by making the notes easier to identify, so that as soon as the perfume was sprayed, the potential customer could go, oh, I get it, it's a mandarin. Oh, I get it, it goes to a jasmine. And the notes had to be very, very clearly defined. Whereas maybe in the 70s, we had things actually that were more abstract, were more just their own thing rather than more recognizable. And also you could say that in the last decade, we had a lot less attention paid to the dry down and more attention paid to those opening top notes, which is a shame because, of course, the dry down in some ways is the most important part of a perfume. But yeah, I think that's what I would pick out.
I agree. And I also would say that last decade was the absolute explosion as far as new brands. I think that decade was a decade that marked just brands popping left and right. It just got out of control. I think last decade was the decade that fragrance brands and new brands, upcoming brands, were just out of control, and dupes. A lot of brands that came about to just taking the top brands and making copies for a more quote unquote affordable price. I think just overall, just an explosion of new brands. Would you say so?
Without any question. I mean, a ridiculous number. And as we've both just said, it was hard to choose top 15, top 40, certainly very hard to choose top 5. So it's not as though there weren't some really, really beautiful perfumes made and released, but there was also so much rubbish and so much, jumping on the bandwagon, lack of originality, really, really a lot. So that if you were to go through a database of all of the perfumes released during that decade, you would have to really do a lot of separating the wheat from the chaff, because there was a lot of very, very forgettable stuff out there.
100%. We'll talk a little bit about honorable mentions because, as we always do, it's hard to just narrow it down to 5. I think only one video we didn't do honorable mentions, and I regret it, which I think was the 70s. But let's hop into it. Darius, give us your first pick here. I don't know if you want to do this chronologically. I'm not going to do it chronologically just because I want to pay respect to my last pick. So I'm going to change it around today. Not going to do it chronologically.
Okay. If you're not going to do it chronologically, I won't do it either. If you want to kind of go in, because there is one as well that I think for me is the standout. People who follow my blog and who follow my channel will know what I mean. Okay, so let's do the other way around. Let's go with the one where this morning I was thinking, oh, do I include it? Do I include another one? This is from 2012. And it is from État Libre d'Orange, and it's The Afternoon of a Faun. I don't know if you can see that there, by Ralph Schwieger. I know that you and I, Max, very soon after we record this, you're actually going to do me the honor of coming onto my channel, and we're going to talk about underrated scents next in a live video. And this one may well be on that, because I don't understand why this doesn't get more love. I don't get it. I mean, I'll ask you in a moment, obviously, if you've tried it. For me, the first time I smelt it, which would have been in 2012, it was just this immediate, oh my God, I know I'm going to have this perfume in my life now forever. And I also wanted to include it today because I wanted the perfumer, Ralph Schwieger, to be represented in some way, because I mean, okay, he is a very, very highly respected, highly rated perfumer, but I kind of think not as much as he should be, because he's just a genius, and almost every single thing that he's made is just fantastic. Now, what do you smell when you smell here? According to the official notes list, you smell a lot of incense and a lot of immortelle, that kind of burnt licorice, almost curry-like feel of immortelle. But I don't know whether I was wrong to think this or I was right to think this. The Afternoon of a Faun is an immediate reference to a famous ballet from the Ballet Russe from the early part of the 20th century. We know that the creative forces behind the Ballet Russe were very, very fond of Guerlain's Mitsuko. And to me, this is like trying to be a 21st century version of a really classic mossy chypre, but maybe with the immortelle taking the place of a lot of the sort of oak moss notes that you can't use. And yet I seem to be the only person who thinks that. And I just don't get it. That I wore it again today, and I also smelled the other one that nearly made it. So here's my first honorable mention. It was nearly going to be the third hour from Cartier, the 13e heure, which is just the most fantastic green lavender. I mean, just extraordinary, by Mathilde Laurent. But in the end, I think I decided to go for this one because I just find it so romantic. It's just this sweeping you off your feet drama, and it needs to be tried. Maybe people can't take the immortelle. I don't know. Have you smelt this?
I have not tried that one. I am looking here at the note breakdown. It looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, immortelle, I'm a huge fan. It's got oak moss, myrrh, I mean, incense, leather, benzoin, I mean, jasmine. It's got a lot of my favorite notes. And then when looking at comparisons, somebody compared it to Sables from Annick Goutal, which I love, and made my 80s list. So this is something that I'm definitely going to look to try. And I mean, État Libre d'Orange is a brand that I don't have a huge amount of experience. I have maybe like 4 fragrances from them. I do need to delve into the brand, and this one looks right up my alley from the note. I mean, I love Immortelle, so definitely something I want to try.
I mean, see, the other thing as well is, I mean, I have definitely compiled this list according to the perfumes, and I haven't sort of tried to do it in a tokenistic way. But as I say, I was pleased. I did want to try to include Ralph Schwieger, and I also wanted to try to include the brand, because I think despite their kind of eccentric, kooky, quirky image, they do have some fantastic standout compositions in their portfolio, and I wanted to be able to include them as well. So I can't recommend this one enough.
I agree with that, and I think that this is a brand that we must include in our underrated jams and brands because, like you said, they're known a lot for their anecdotal, like funny and quirky kind of releases, but they have so much to offer. Not just your, what's that one that everybody makes fun of?
The Magnificent Secretions.
Yeah. I mean, they have a lot of fun kind of fragrances, but they also have some serious ones. Case in point, the one you just shared with us. Amazing. I gotta get my nose on that. So I'm also gonna start here with one controversial brand. This particular release from 2010, the brand itself is Creed, which a lot of people might be scratching their head. Come on, he's not gonna talk about it. Yes,
I'm not sure I've ever heard of them. Who are they?
But I'm not including this as a joke. It's not that at all. Actually, my favorite from the brand is going to be a fragrance that never gets any talk, which is this one right here, Millésime Tabaron. Now, Millésime Tabaron, quote unquote, is said by Creed in their briefing that was released to a king. I don't know the whole story because we all know, Creed likes to put out these stories. Anyway, it's said to be officially and originally released in 1875. I'm not sure. There's no records to show anything from Creed, prior to 1975 with Sugar Foil. So I'm not going to hold my breath on that. But needless to say, this is a great release that was re-released in 2010 in their private collection. And this is pretty much a gorgeous, spicy tobacco with oak moss and creamy Mysore sandalwood. It's just unbelievable. Think of this very peppery and spicy tobacco, green spicy tobacco with oak moss, amber, and creamy sandalwood dried down. I've never smelled anything so good. Smells so good. If you like oak moss, if you like fougères and you wanted like a fougère that's laced with this spicy tobacco, this would be the fragrance. It's very hard to find and very expensive. I think the 75 ml bottles of this stuff sells for over $1,000, if you find it on eBay or whatever. But I was able to...
Is that you selling them on eBay, Max?
No, it's not, because if I had it, I would not sell it. This one here I picked up about 7 years ago, and it was about halfway full. Now it's about a third of the way. And I think even back then I paid like $750 for this, which is obscene to say the least. But yeah, vintage Tabaron, because they have a Millésime Tabaron, which is more of a juicy aromatic tobacco. Not this. This is vintage Tabaron, which is, to me, the best Creed ever made.
Well, you're selling it. I mean, if I have tried it, I think it would have been a long time ago, and it didn't stay in my memory. But if ever I find a shop that stocks it, I will try to smell it. Absolutely, I'll try. I mean, you certainly do make it sound very good, I have to say.
It's been vaulted, so chances to try it, it's incredibly hard, slim to none. But when we do meet in person, I'm definitely going to make you a decant, because you got to get your nose on this. I know you're going to appreciate it.
And it will be the end of a beautiful friendship. No. Okay, no, that sounds... I'll definitely look forward to trying it, maybe.
I know you don't appreciate Creed. But anyway, let's continue. Your fourth pick.
Okay, so my next one is from 2011. Interestingly, all of my five are from the first 3 years of the decade. I've only got 2010, 2011, 2012. I don't know what that means, what that says, but this...
Me too. Me too.
That's yeah. Me too. This is 2011, and this was a fascinating one for me because this one took me a while to love. I never disliked it, but I remember when I first smelt it, I just kind of did a sort of shrugging, oh yeah, this is perfectly nice, and then I found myself reaching for it again and again and again and again and thinking, oh my God, did I not get this perfume first? And you were saying sandalwood. This is Tom Ford's Santal Blush by Jan Vanier. As you can see, Persolaise likes it. Can you see that? Hang on, there you go.
Oh yeah.
Which means that I kind of need to get a little bit more. So I'm going to spare a tiny little bit, or spray a tiny little bit here. What I find fascinating about this, I mean, the word blush in the name, I think, is just best avoided. The juice is a little bit pink. Maybe that's why it's in there. And I suppose it does have a kind of slightly fruity, apricot-y peachy opening. But that's not really what this scent is about. It's so good. Actually, I really need to get another bottle soon because I can't be without this stuff. But I don't really wear a perfume for compliments, but this is one of the ones where, without fail, every single time I wear it, somebody will say, "Oh wow, that really suits you. What is that?" And by the way, I should say, I'm saying it's made by Jan Vanier as though I know that for a fact. Tom Ford, of course, never officially release the names of their perfumers, so I'm only saying what the internet says about who the perfumer is. We don't know that for a fact.
And you're right about that. I want to leave here as a record too, because I speak to a lot of perfumers off camera, and I'm not going to name names because that's not the professional thing to do, but that is a true statement that Tom Ford brand does not like to give credit to the perfumers, which is really a shame. I want to leave it here for the record. But anyway,
I know, I agree with you. And also, I'd like to know the reasoning, because of all people, Tom Ford is very genuinely, I think, a perfume geek. He loves perfumes. He loves, I think somebody once called him a product junkie. He likes grooming products. He likes beauty products. And you sort of think, of all of the people in the industry, actually, surely he would be the one who would want to give credit. I don't understand, but there must be, I suppose, from a kind of brand creation point of view, they want everything to be Mr. Ford, don't they? They don't, like a little bit like Serge Lutens. Nobody is allowed to speak for the Serge Lutens brand other than Serge Lutens himself. You're not allowed to do an interview with anybody else within the brand. So I kind of get it, but I also kind of don't. Anyway, what do we smell here? This is a fascinating take on sandalwood, almost because it's a kind of unrealistic sandalwood. Now, if you smell true Mysore sandalwood or any kind of good quality sandalwood, it isn't actually smoky, even though smoky is a word that is often used to describe sandalwood. It's actually much more about milkiness and creaminess and a very, very super smooth, velvety woodiness, with maybe something that is suggesting or hinting at smokiness without really going there. Now, Santal Blush is like all of those gentle, quiet elements of sandalwood turned up to full volume, turned up to 11, so that you get a diffusive sandalwood, which is not something that you would normally associate with sandalwood. You get a sandalwood with a huge sillage, and then suddenly this smokiness, which actually isn't sandalwood, is out there and feels like it totally should belong in the sandalwood. Jan Vanier, if he is the perfumer, he's often described as somebody who just smells things in a different way from most people. And I think that kind of slightly off-center, coming at things from a different angle style is really evidenced here, because it is sandalwood, it's recognizably sandalwood, but it's not sandalwood as you know it. And I think probably if I had to choose a favorite Tom Ford, for instance, this would be it. It's just genius. Have you tried it, Max?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I own that one, and I think, as you said, I think it's a lot of people's favorite private blend, because it's this just beautiful, like, second skin that's very milky and creamy and seductive and warm, and it's great. You described it great. It's just this beautiful, milky, creamy, and just enveloping and inviting sandalwood. They did a great job with that one. Absolutely. Great choice. And that one's from 2010 or 11?
I got it down as 11, 2011.
11. Yeah, I think it came out the same years as Italian Cypress, which is another honorable mention that I almost had it here. It's discontinued now, also, which is a great one. But I went with this choice here from 2010 instead, which is from the La Collection Privée from Dior. And there's so many great ones from that collection. I don't like what they did with the collection these days. They overhauled the whole collection, changed the whole direction. It's very floral and faint. It's nothing like it was back in the day. And this, to me, is probably one of the top 3 best vetiver fragrances of all time. And I love vetiver, so I had to include a vetiver here. It's just called vetiver. Amazing stuff. Now, I think only available at the Dior boutique in France and very limited in quantities. This is basically a melange of all vetivers, Javanese vetiver, Haitian vetiver, all wrapped into this beautiful green fruity coffee nuance. Amazing. amazing. I mean, if you love vetiver, this is a must. It's just that simple, you know. Oh, it's amazing. And for a guy that has over 2,000 bottles to have worn much of this juice, it tells you that I absolutely love this stuff. I mean, this is something that I bathe myself in when I wear it. Now I wear it very gingerly just because it's hard to find, and I've seen this out there for like $500-600 for this size. So it's getting pricey. It's getting pricey. But have you tried it? I mean, it's lovely vetiver.
Yes, yes. I remember when that collection privé came out in 2010, actually in Paris. I think it debuted at the Bon Marché department store. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that. I actually managed to go to Paris and smell it a few months after it came out, and I think the vetiver was part of the original lineup. Yeah, that was a very, very strong opening lineup, those scents, and the vetiver. I remember thinking the vetiver was pretty good. So yeah, if you're a vetiver fan, I'm not surprised that's on there.
Yeah, I mean that original lineup of 2010 was just incredible. I mean, you had Mitsa, you had Cologne Noir. I mean, there was some stuff there that was just so unique and so incredibly powerful and different than anything that was out there. And a lot of those have been vaulted or discontinued or really hard to find, which is a shame. I think those were like the crown jewel of that collection. But anyway, great stuff. If anybody listening or viewing this video has a chance to try this and you love vetiver, this is like quality through and through. But let's go with your next pick.
Okay, well, you've gone with that one. So to start my top three, I'm going to go 2010. Now, don't disconnect me, Max, because we know what you think of this one. But I'm going to go collection privé as well. But I'm going to go leather oud, your favorite. Do you know what?
You're going with poop oud?
It's amazing, this stuff. I love it. But I think I'm right in saying that Dior has been represented, certainly on my lists, in every single decade. And if you had asked me in advance if that was going to happen, I probably would have said no. And yet, you know, we like to badmouth sometimes designer brands, so-called designer brands like Dior, because we say, you know, they don't release good stuff or whatever. But here we are, and I'm including. Oh, I've just sprayed this. This is amazing, Matt.
I have to revisit that because it's been, I think, it's been like a decade since I wore it, and I had that funny story with my wife. We thought we stepped on doo doo, but I have to retry that fragrance because you never know. Your tastes do change, and maybe wearing it again, I'll find different nuances that I couldn't see back then. But you're right, Dior, I've said it many times, it is my favorite designer brand of all time. I mean, throughout the decades, they've always released, sure, there has been the flop release here and there, but overall, there's always something of quality about Dior. But please do go on.
Definitely. No. So I tried this one, like I said, around about the same time as I would have tried your vetiver. Madame Persolaise and I were in Paris. It was approaching winter 2010, and I'd already read a little bit about leather oud, and I thought, I'm probably going to like this. But I had no idea that I would love it. And my wife could see the look on my face, and it's approaching Christmas, right? So she sort of looks at me and says, would you like this as your Christmas present? And I'm sort of going like this. but okay, let's try and pick out why. Because this perfume isn't just about oud. I mean, obviously there is an oud note in there. I'm sure it's heavily supported by synthetic ouds. But it is also a lot about cypriol, the sort of very dry, papery, bonfirey, leathery scent profile of cypriol. And it's this marriage of the cypriol and the oud with some fantastic citrus, spicy top note happening at the beginning, and a really great use of musks in the base. This stuff is fire. I mean, it's, you know how Montal did Oud Cuir d'Arabie. I'm not sure exactly when. That's another favorite oud of mine, and that's like just this perfect marriage of leather and oud. This is called leather oud. It's another perfect marriage of leather and oud. But whereas the Montal is more animalic, I think this is more fiery and more woody. And people say that it's been reformulated. and who knows, chances are it has been reformulated. But you also mustn't discount the fact that if you are smelling a bottle that is 10 years old, it is always going to smell different from something that's just been freshly compounded and freshly made. I think this is my third bottle now.
Wow.
So that really tells you something. It's an absolute go-to for me when I want a certain sort of statement scent. Unfortunately, Madame Persolaise loves it as well. And I think it's one of the best things that François Demachy has ever done. I mean, he just sort of completely took that oud idea and owned it. So yeah, top marks from me.
I have to revisit that, and I think one of the ones from the Dior La Collection Privée that I really enjoy that didn't make the list but also deserves an honorable mention, I think it was from 2012, would be Oud Spahan, which I like it slightly better than that one, which is this rose oud combo with an animalistic undertone. Very powerful as well, very pungent. I don't know, I just found leather oud a little too barnyardy for me. But again, I have to revisit because I may have different opinions. And I also have to point out that when I did try it, it was in the dead of the summer. It was like July. It was really hot here, humid. So it wasn't a good combination in the car. But, maybe I'll revisit in the colder weather because we really get cold winters here. And I think maybe it'll work better. But I'm not huge on oud. As you can see on my picture, there's not going to be a really predominant oud fragrance at all. It's not, something that I really love. I enjoy it depending on how it's paired. But it's not a note that is in my top favorites. It's definitely
not. And that's fine. I mean, you have your creed. I'll have my leather oud.
I'm telling you, when you try vintage Tabarum, you're gonna change your thoughts on this fragrance. It's just amazing.
Anything is possible. I'm just so curious now about what your third one is.
All right, so my third one is going to be one from MFK, which is a great brand. I mean, Francis Carjan did a great job with this brand when he created it, And I think the 2010s, he released some incredible gems. I mean, if you want to go oud, you can go oud. He's got some great stuff there. If you want to go, Fougere, Pluriel is great. I mean, there's always something great. I mean, it's like a rainbow. There's something for everyone at MFK's brand. But it's not going to be Baccarat Rouge 540 2015. It deserves a little, honorable mention, but it's overplayed. But this one here, to me, is the best MFK ever put together. One that does not get much play. People talk about Grand Soir. They talk about Baccarat Rouge. They talk about the ouds, oud satin mood. This here is amazing. You talk about fire. I love the note of honey. This is an animalistic, creamy and incensey, smoky honey with creamy sandalwood, rose, floral. Amazing. Absolute pour le soir. This is a masterpiece. This is a masterpiece. And the funny thing is, I think it's being discontinued from what I understand, which is very, very sad. I think I'm going to have to try to find one of those big 200 ml flacons and just call it a day, because this is one fragrance that you don't need more than 2 sprays. It'll last and push the whole day. Just so quality. If you love the note of honey, it's so uncanny. It's like literally somebody poured honey in here and mixed it. Amazing. Just honey, floral notes like ylang ylang, rose, creamy sandalwood, benzoin. It's smoky. It's creamy. It's aphrodisiac. Just incredible. It's just my favorite. I mean, I would get rid of all my MFKs if somebody said you can only keep one. This would be it. And I think I did a video talking about 10 for life niche fragrances, and this made the top 5. That's how much I love this stuff. You familiar with Absolute pour le soir?
Oh my goodness, Max! I mean, it almost made this list, and one of the reasons why it didn't was because actually I found out that it looks as though it has been properly discontinued, and I thought, okay, well, no, I absolutely adore it. Can never be without a backup bottle. I've been fortunate enough to interview Francis Kirkjian a few times, and it almost always comes up in conversation, and he loves it as well, but he basically said that he can't justify continuing to produce a scent that nobody seems to buy. And I also remember one of the first times he interviewed me, he told me that at least the original batches contained real civet, because it's pretty animalic, that stuff as well.
It really is, and this is a vintage bottle, so chances are there's really civet in here. That's great.
But no, it is fantastic. The people who get it and the people who love it, like yourself, really, really adore it. And I completely agree that I think it's the best thing Kirkjian ever did for that brand. and it's just a mystery why it was probably too potent. It was probably too much.
I was gonna say that this thing is a beast. I mean, you really must appreciate smoky, animalistic kind of fragrance because it's like a separate entity. You wear this stuff, if you spray your clothes, it'll be there for a decade. It's strong, but I love it. I love every step of the way from beginning to end. It's just, it's a journey. Amazing fragrance, and sadly discontinued. So, since you know for sure it's officially 100%, I thought it was. I'm definitely gonna get a backup bottle because I can't be without this stuff. I love it.
No, agreed.
Let's see your next one. I'm very curious. We only have I have two more, and I think you also have two more.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is probably, well, not probably, definitely, this is going to be the sort of least known brand of these 5 that I'm doing here. This is one of the original bottles of this release from 2011. This is from the brand Nila Vermeer Creations, and this is one of their debut trio. This is called Trahi, composed by Bertrand Duchaufour. All of the scents for the brand so far have been made by Duchaufour. You can turn it into a spray, the original bottle, but I never put the sort of pump spray mechanism in. And this, you know, we had Duchaufour, I'm pretty sure, in the last video. He is one of the most talented perfumers of our times, but I think some of the best work he has created, without question, is under the direction of Nila Vermeer, the founder of this brand. And every single perfume in this brand is in some way linked to the history or some moment in time in India. So there is one perfume that's inspired by the lake palace in Udaipur, one perfume that's inspired by the silk trade, and so on and so forth. And I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that Trahi is meant to be a sort of tribute or a homage to India's spiritual past, its meditative past. And this I mean, Duchaufour is a genius perfumer anyway. He's really, really talented. But what he seems to be particularly good at is taking notes and materials that you would normally consider to be quite heavy and dense and sticky, and just shooting them through with so much light that they become just impossibly transparent. So, you know, woods become really transparent. Florals become really transparent and legible. In terms of structure, this is maybe a slightly fruity floral on a beautiful smooth sandalwood base. There is just so much else going on here. I mean, you get the spices at the top, you get cardamom, you get a very, very marked jasmine base. I remember at the time when I reviewed it, and I always think this as well, that this is like somebody taking Guerlain's Samsara, which is basically a sort of jasmine sandalwood, but just making it even creamier, even richer, even more aristocratic somehow, I think is the word that comes to mind. This is a very, very elevated perfume. And and I should have said as well, a kind of milky, sweet, condensed milky dessert. If you've ever had Indian desserts, they're very heavily based on sweet condensed milk, nuts, you know, ground almonds, ground cashews. That kind of thing is happening in there as well. It is just beautiful. And, you know, if for people who haven't tried it, do yourselves a favor and try and get a sample. But if you haven't tried the Nila Vermeer brand as well, do yourselves a favor, because every single perfume in that brand has got something to offer. Do you know this one?
Well, first of all, my mouth is watering here. I'm craving some Indian dessert, like some kulfi dessert or gulab jamun.
Yes.
You know, I'm really, you know, my mouth is watering. But I don't know the brand. I have not experienced the brand, but I would love to try, because we've spoken many times about the creator. We talked about the brand. Maybe you can connect me with her. I'd love to talk about her creations and trying them. I do believe it needs a lot of limelight, and I do hope you talk about this brand when we talk about the underrated fragrance brands, because it looks as though this is a masterpiece of a brand that's really flying under the radar. And Bertrand Duchaufour needs no introduction. He's in the top 5 master noses of our time. There's no question about it. So I'm very curious. It sounds amazing. I've never tried it. Never tried anything from the brand.
It's really beautiful. It's well worth checking out. And another one, you know, again, honorable mention that I would say is Ashoka. That's probably my second favorite from that brand. Really, really fantastic sort of.
I love the bottles too. They look like dresses, like long dresses.
They were, after this design, they were made. maybe just a little bit more sophisticated. So they had the same basic design, but they were maybe a little bit more streamlined, you know, maybe sort of a bit not quite
Thicker.
so well, sort of broader at the top, narrower at the bottom.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I think just superior quality, but the idea was the same. The idea of the design remained the same.
That's amazing. My next choice is going to be a choice from the Majestic collection from Yves Saint Laurent, which is kind of like a private blend that they attempted. Sadly discontinued. I think the whole line has been pulled because then they started like a new I forgot the French name, but they started a new brand, which had a new line that has like Cure, Tuxedo, like they, you know, the longer bottles, which is more, they had like the standard bottle, which is now their quote unquote private blend.
Yeah.
But this here was an incredible collection that had fragrances like Supreme Bouquet, Majestic Rose. I think it had one that had wood in the name. I forgot what it's called. Splendid Wood, I think it was called, or Splendid Oud, something like that. But anyway, the whole line was incredibly powerful, incredibly creative, just amazing, just amazing. Then it just becomes discontinued, hard to find, and now it's like $300-400 for a bottle. But this here to me is the best leather release in the 2010s, and that's saying a lot. This is going to be a succulent leather though. It has the suede leather facet with dried fruits, vanilla, bourbon, like liqueur kind of a facet, gorgeous earthy patchouli and amber base. Incredible stuff. It's called Noble Leather from 2013. Have you ever tried this?
I'm pretty sure I did. I mean, I know the
so good.
Collection you're talking about. I remember them coming out, and I remember them making a bit of a splash and then disappearing.
Gorgeous bottle. I mean, very Middle Eastern appointments and accents. I mean, the juice is beautiful cognac color. And that's what I get. I get like this leathery cognac, vanilla patchouli, and amber base with a ton of spices. I mean, amazing. Like the best leather produced in the last decade, period. And this is like a masterpiece. I don't know who the nose is behind this one. I wish I knew who the nose was. But this is incredible. Just a succulent leather that just, you know, it just, you know, when you wear this, it's like you're wearing this perfect garment, you know. I mean, if you like Tuscan leather from Tom Ford, this is 10 times better. But it goes into a different direction. Tuscan leather is more of a dry with a touch of raspberry. This has like dry fruits. It has the beautiful earthy patchouli. It's just more of a multifaceted, and I find Tuscan leather to be more of a linear. This is very multifaceted and very complex and transitional. Love this stuff. I mean, sadly discontinued. I wish if I knew this was going to be discontinued, I would have bought a lot more than just one. Amazing, just amazing.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking about the overall trends for that decade, and we didn't say that one of the things actually was discontinuations. So much stuff coming, being released, sticking around for 6 or 7 or 8 months, and then disappearing. I mean, it didn't used to happen like that, did it?
Very true. It's probably the decade that had the most discontinuations. You're absolutely right, which is sad, very, very sad, because we lost tons of great releases, and now we're stuck with a lot of regurgitated ones. So go figure. You know, I guess they're just like you talked about Francis Kurkdjian saying that he's discontinued Absolute Pearl and Soie because it doesn't sell. That's what people have to understand too. When you say, "Oh, how come fragrances get discontinued?" Well, if it's not being consumed, these companies are businesses. They're not making fragrances just to make them. It's a business. You know, that's one aspect of it that we need to understand. The art is there, the beauty is there, but it's also a business. You know, you can't produce 1,000 of these per quarter, let's say, and sell 1 or 2. You know, you have to invest your time and energy and money into something else. I mean, it's just the way the cookie crumbles. But anyway, a conversation for a different story, a different day. Maybe we talk about something like that. It's a little more controversial. But curious to see your last one, then I'll talk about my last one.
I'm curious to see your last one as well. Well, as I said, regular followers, regular viewers, regular readers will know exactly where this is going, because this is 2010, and not only do I consider this to be the standout release of the decade, but also one of the standout releases of all time. I mean, this was just mind-blowing the first time I tried it. And this is actually a limited edition bottle of it. So just by looking at the bottle, people may not be able to know straight away what it is. It is a Frederic Malle. And this is a portrait of a lady. A few years ago, they did these limited edition scents for some of their ranges. Oh, and this is by Dominique Ropion, who also needs to be recognized as one of the greatest perfumers of our time, of any time. Um, the very, very first time I tried this was also the very, very first time I met, finally in person, Grant Osborne, who is the editor of Bass Notes, who I now am very fortunate to call a good friend. And I had just sprayed some of this on my wrist at Liberty in London. And then I was going around the corner where Grant and I had arranged to meet for a coffee for the very first time. We had exchanged emails and things like that before, but we'd never met. And the very first thing that I did was I stick my wrist under his nose and I said, smell this. And he goes, ooh, that's nice. I said, yeah, I know. Do you know what it is? And then when it actually came out, because this was like a pre-release sample that we were able to smell at Liberty's, when it came out, I bought those 3 10ml vials for myself because I thought I have to wear this. This is just the most incredible thing ever. And then my long-suffering wife, Madame Persolaise, goes, ooh, what's that? That's really nice. And she stole it from me, in effect. And of course, now I can't wear it because she probably has 2 signature scents, and this is one of them. She is recognized wherever she goes according to by this scent. It suits her down to a T. What is it? For the very few people out there who have not tried this, it is the most ginormous incense and patchouli filled rose you could imagine. It is just so decadent and opulent and rich and baroque. It's really, really operatic. It's grand. It's larger than life. You know, it's like the sort of smoky-eyed makeup drama. It's huge puffs of incense billowing within a church and the smoke streaming out of the church windows. I mean, it is drama, drama, drama. And as Grant Osborne's children have called me sometimes, they say I'm a drama llama, which I can be. But as I say, Madame Persolaise has stolen this from me. It is just beautiful. Some people can't take the patchouli. Some people can't take the sort of peppery note at the top. Some people prefer Carnal Flower from Frederick Malle. They're just wrong because this is amazing. Do you know this one, Max? I guess you do.
100%. It's a masterpiece, and it's also featured in my top favorite releases of the decade of 2010s. This is a fruity, spicy, smoky, floral explosion. I mean, it's just incredible. It's a masterpiece of the 2010s and one of Dominique Ropion's best works. You know, just incredible stuff. You know, anybody who loves fragrance needs to at least try this because it's mind-boggling. It's just nothing like it. Very unique, very uncanny, very special concoction, and one that's deserving of all praises. 100%.
And technically such a marvel as well. I mean, this stuff, the trail, the sillage, the longevity. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
It reminds me of Pepe Le Pew. I mean, for all Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes fans, remember when Pepe Le Pew, the skunk, would spray himself with fragrance and he would hop, and then the scent trail. This is the kind of strong scent trail it leaves. It's just amazing. Yeah. Amazing stuff. Great choice.
What's Max's number 1?
Well, here's the thing. If you know, like you said, people that know your channel, that know you, people that follow me, they know that I love Vativers, but I love my fougères. I love my lavender oak moss. So I think I had to go with, closing this whole series. You know, we started with the 70s, we went through the 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010. So I had to finish it off with a fougère. I mean, there's tons of stuff that could have made this list. We all know this was hard to pick. But I think this is probably the quintessential best fougère ever produced because it was the first ever made. Back in 1889, I don't have a vintage, bottle of Fougère Royale, which I wish I did, but this is the second best thing. This is the rekindling or the remake of this particular juggernaut of a fougère from Rodrigo Floreiro, which I know you had the pleasure to interview a couple days ago. And he remade this fragrance beautifully, 2010 Fougère Royale Houbigant. And here it is, the bottle right here in all its, glory. Beautiful stuff. Of course, it's not going to be as pungent, as strong as an animalistic because you couldn't actually produce it with those original elements from 1889. But I think it was captured beautifully. When you think of fougère, it has the geranium and the carnation, which gives this floral / minty kind of undertone. lavender, green notes. There's a chamomile, tea vibe in the fragrance that's a little bit calming as well. Some spices like cinnamon that's just peppered in there. Beautiful oak moss, sage, coumarin, all the stuff that we love. Gorgeous lavender. It'll be my scent of the day today. So I love this stuff so much. Oh, it's amazing. If you love fougères, this is something that you must have. Not even try, just buy it. Blind buy it because you're going to love it. It is a masterpiece. Kudos to Rodrigo Fleureau because he nailed it. It smells amazing. Like right now, I'm feeling like the Great Gatsby. I'm feeling like, going back in time and wearing something like this. I'm sure you know this fragrance.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And thank you very much for mentioning the interview with Rodrigo. If people would like to watch it, I recommend that interview. I mean, Rodrigo was on fire yesterday. He often is, but he was on fine form. So if you just search for Persolaise Rodrigo Flores Roux interview, I'm sure you'll find it. And he did talk a little bit about what he called the reorchestration of Fougère Royale. But I'm going to tell you something you may find interesting. Have you ever smelt the original Fougère Royale?
That's my long life. That's my long life dream.
Okay, well then you will. I mean, if you do ever manage to smell it, you may disagree with what I'm about to say to you, but I have very, very fortunately been able to smell the original at the Osmothèque in Versailles. If you ever go to Versailles, you can make an appointment at the Osmothèque to smell pretty much every single important perfume creation ever made. We've mentioned base notes already. If people would like to find out a little bit more about the Osmothèque, I wrote an article on base notes about it many years ago. And one of the first things that I wanted to try there, go on, Max.
I will include that in the link of this video. If you want to send to me the article and details, I'll include it in the video. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's kind. Thank you. One of the things that I absolutely wanted to smell when I went there was Fougère Royale. And I was actually really, really surprised. Because, we like to think that, in the past, things must have been more potent, more animalic, etc. Actually, what makes that one remarkable is that it's really soft and gentle and tender. And that original Fougère Accord is nowhere near as abrasive and hairy-chested, if you like, as we like to think of it now. If there's anything closer to original Fougère Royale than like what Rodrigo has made, it's something more along the lines of Geranium pour Monsieur from Frédéric Malle, but maybe without that mintiness. Okay, so that's fascinating, and I think Rodrigo himself hit the nail on the head, and the interview on my channel, when he said that he basically kind of went off with Fougère Royale and almost did his own thing and made a kind of Spanish continental fougère, which maybe would be more hairy-chested. So it's interesting. The journey of that fragrance is interesting. I mean, there's even dispute now about whether in its original form, whether it actually was a perfume or whether it was a soap. What came out first? Did it come out as this? Did it come out as that? But no, I didn't see that coming. But now that it has, of course, it makes total sense. And it's good that you mentioned that one, because I think people aren't so aware that even that perfume is actually out there. I've got an original bottle as well from 2010. It was 2010.
Yeah, this is an original from 2010, and I have to say, I mean, he did a great job, and it is hairy-chested. I mean, you have to like Dracar Noirs. Dracar Noir. You have to like those really strong and green and pungent sort of fougères, but it's done. I mean, it starts off strong, but then it calms down, like that soapy vibe that you talk about. It's definitely present. It gets very clean, very green. Other fragrances that I would compare to this that's available today as well would be something like Bracken Man from Amouage, perhaps English Fern from Penhaligon's, Tsar from Van Cleef and Arpels. I think all those fragrances are within this genre. That cologne vibe from Acqua di Parma meets the heavier green fougère kind of elements. I love it. This is my favorite genre. This is the stuff I can wear anytime, all the time, everywhere. People know me for these fragrances, and thank God it wears well on me. Like, I shave, I put some Brut, and I spray some of this stuff on. That's my signature smell, And it smells good. You're gonna love it when you smell me.
I'm just thinking, like, with you on the one hand and me in leather rude and and Madame Persolaise in Portrait of a Lady. And like, what would your wife wear? What would she be like?
It'll be a nuclear room. My wife likes ambery, like sweet ambery floral type
So we
scent.
could give her like Shalimar or Amber Sultan or something like that.
There you go. There you go. There you go. It would be a funny dinner, that's for sure. I mean, we'd be the best smelling table in the restaurant, no question.
Or the worst.
Or the worst. So I think we made it, right? We've done it. I
Absolutely.
mean, amazing pickups, amazing choices. You know, always a pleasure talking to you. I think people that watch our videos and our lives, I think they do get a kick out of it. I think we do have a really fun and quirky way to do things. I do enjoy doing videos and collaborating with you. I hope the feeling is mutual. And of course,
absolutely.
You know, stay tuned for the lives. We'll be talking about underrated fragrances that are deserving of your attention that most likely you haven't heard of. So stay tuned.
Say one thing, Matt. Have you kind of like done some honorable mentions, or as you've been going along?
Oh yeah, we've done a couple, but let me go through real quickly here. So I'm going to do some honorable mentions from the designer side. Prada Amber Per Homme Intense from 2011 was a great incense-y, dark fougere patchouli kind of a scent. Mugler Pure Havane from 2011 was a great tobacco scent. Dior Eau Sauvage Parfum 2012, which was like this myrrh, incensey kind of a dark vetiver take. Amazing stuff. Almost made this list. Like I had it. It was like in between that or the vetiver from La Collection Privée. Chanel Allure Homme Sport Extreme 2012. Yeah, it's mainstream. It's a little bit teenager or young adult, but it's a great use of tonka, you know, within that blue aquatic kind of a genre. They did a good job with that. A little bit aldehylic as well. Dior Fahrenheit Le Parfum was great. 2014 was like a boozy vanilla bourbon infusion on the original. Dior Homme Parfum was a great take on Dior Homme Intense. They took oud and a skanky leather into that, you know, Dior Homme, profile. Great stuff. That's, I think, discontinued, hard to find now. Then we had the Robert Graham collection, which was Valor. There was a lighter one. It was like a gin and tonic. And of course, there was a Fortissimo, or Fortitude, not Fortissimo. Fortissimo was a fragrance that I'm going to release in the future. But Fortitude, which is a heavy tobacco kind of a fragrance. Issey Miyake Noir Ambre from 2016. Moustache EDP, which is like a retake on the original Moustache Homme from Rochas. And then from the niche side of things, we have to talk about Creed Aventus just because of the whole phenomenon. We'll talk about MFK Baccarat Rouge 540 2015. The Guerlain, La Métrier collection, which had the Tonka Imperial 2010, and a whole bunch of other great releases, Irish Ganache, and tons of great fragrances in that collection. Dior Privé, we had Mitsa, Oud Spahan, among other great ones. We'd have to be here the whole day talking about this stuff. It was just great. Amouage Memoir Men, which is, I had to choose between that one and Noble Leather. Memoir Men is like this incensey dark leather fragrance that's just incredible. It's still available today. A little bit toned down, not as strong as it used to, but still great. Bon Number 9, Andy Warhol, which is this incensey oud plum kind of a fragrance, also discontinued. Jovoy or Jovois Psychedelique, I think, is the best patchouli money can buy right now if you like a dark, skanky patchouli. And last but not least, MDCI Parfums Chypre Palatin, which is a great Chypre from 2010. That's it. There's more. I'll do one more. We'll talk Roger Parfums Enigma, which is like this cognac, tobacco, and leather kind of a. There's so many to talk about, but we'll leave it at that. How about you? Some honorable mentions.
Well, the easiest thing I guess is for people to go to the blog post, where I do the best of the decade. But some of the ones that come to mind now, and apologies because I'll probably forget some. But I really, really adore The Night from Frederic Malle, which is basically Portrait of a Lady with oud. Santal 33 from Le Labo. Apsu from Ulrich Lang. Again, it was very successful for the brand, but not many other people seem to talk about it. What else I'm trying to think of. Thierry Mugler's Womanity. Thierry Mugler's Womanity, I think, was the moment actually when things started going wrong for the brand in a way. It was like a turning point because it was a genius fragrance. And in the past, Mugler would probably have stuck by it and waited longer for it to find an audience. But things can't be given that sort of time anymore. And so they pulled it. And that was when you kind of thought, okay, well, this isn't the same sort of brand as it used to be perfume-wise. I mentioned the third hour from
Cartier.
Cartier. Yeah, I think the best thing is for people to go and check out those the two-part blog posts that I did, because I think there's about 38, 39, you know, something like Orange Star from Andy Tower. Although that may be 2009, actually, I can't remember. But Andy Towers, Oud, Andy Towers, Les Années 25. There were some good things released in that decade.
And speaking of underrated stuff, Naomi Good Sir, Cure-Velours was a great leather, 2012, amazing. I may feature that on that conversation that we're doing the live. I mean, never gets talked. Incredible.
No, well done for mentioning that brand, because I think I'm sure I included one in my best of the decade. The one that comes to mind now is the Bakelite Nights, you know, Nuit de Bakelite, which is just this most extraordinary tuberose scent. No, so that's well worth mentioning, that brand, actually.
So please send me those links, because I'll keep all those links of things we talked about in this video in the description of this video, so people can check it out and get even more acquainted with the decade and everything. And guys, thanks so much for being here with us. I know it's an hour-long video. It's awesome when I talk to Darius. I mean, personally, we can talk fragrance all day long. It's a passion that we truly have, and we love that you guys love to hear us babble here about fragrances. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Enjoy. Go show him some love. Persolaise has one, I said this before, no joke, one of the best fragrance-related channels on YouTube. Deserving. Talk about underrated channels. The guy is amazing. So thank you so much, guys. Stay tuned for more Where It Truly Moves You, and we'll see you guys in the next one. See you soon. Bye-bye.